Good morning, everyone. Our next speaker is Dr. Casey Tramp. She is a family and functional medicine doctor who has completed an obstetrics fellowship and is certified by IFM in functional medicine. She has spent the last 20 years helping women who are tired and burned out figure out what's going on with their bodies, then fix it so they can feel great and live the life they deserve. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. So I was in the last room with Hannah and Kombucha, and she was dancing and singing. I promise I will not be doing that. She did it much better than I could do. 287. Anybody have any ideas what that number might represent? I hope not. Blood sugar? No. So it's the number of chemicals that are found in umbilical cord blood for our babies. So today we're talking about toxins and how they impact our hormones. And I want to help you understand where they're found and what you can do about it. So my name is Dr. Casey Tramp, and before we start, I really want to just talk to you about what my hormone story was so that you can kind of understand how I came to learn about functional medicine and what I learned how to do about it. So I was pregnant with my son, Garrett, lying on the ultrasound table when the radiologist walked in and said, "Casey, you have 2 large grapefruit-sized uterine fibroids." Now, I knew that uterine fibroids really can cause a lot of problems for people. They can cause problems with bleeding and preterm labor. So I was so happy when my pregnancy went off with no problems. My son, Garrett, was perfect. However, about 3 weeks after I had Garrett, my mom was hosting a baby shower in my small hometown. We were all sitting around in a circle playing the chocolate diaper game. Have you ever heard of this game? Yeah. It's a Midwest favorite, maybe in California too. So, Snickers, anybody? Yeah. We were sitting in a circle playing this game, and my mom nudged me and said, "Hey, you have a huge problem." And I looked down to see my white pants covered with blood. I had no idea that over the next couple hours, I would lose 90% of my blood. 90. So we went to my small hometown ER, and there the doctors could not stop the bleeding. And I remember him walking in saying, "Casey, I'm so sorry. We can't stop the bleeding. We're going to have to send you by helicopter to a bigger hospital." And I remember thinking, will I ever see my son again? Thankfully, when we went to the bigger hospital, the doctors there were able to save my life. They stopped the bleeding. But you know what? I always think it's interesting when I think back to those days. Nobody ever came in and said, "Hey, Casey, you have a hormone problem. Too much estrogen, not enough progesterone. What are you going to do about that?" And I was training in this field at the time. And I would never have said that to anybody either. I would never have said that to anybody either. So the years passed, and my hormone problems just got worse. I started a busy practice. I had another child. I was very, very stressed out. I gained lots of weight. And I remember one day a friend of mine took me out to lunch, and she said to me, "Hey, Casey, have you ever heard of functional medicine?" And I said, "No, I've never heard of functional medicine." Have you guys heard of functional medicine?
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. I think more and more people have heard about functional medicine. This was many years ago now. And I said, "No, I've never heard of functional medicine." And she told me that functional medicine is a way to think differently about the body. Now, what she told me may make logical sense to you, but for me, I had never heard about this before, and it was totally different than the way I was trained. So I was trained in this system of medicine, ill, disease, fix. And what I found was there's a whole different way to think about the body. If you can look for those root causes, things like inflammation and nutrient deficiencies and gut imbalances that we've heard about a lot here today, if you can find the hormone imbalances, if you can figure out where the toxicities are, you can help people heal. And when you can do that, it changes people's lives. And so eventually I started studying functional medicine. I started applying it in my practice, in my busy family medicine practice where I was seeing 30 patients a day. Eventually I got to the point where I just couldn't do that anymore. And so I was able to leave my practice and start my own functional medicine practice where I've been able to help women, mostly women, sometimes they bring their husbands in, really figure out what those imbalances are so that they can get their bodies back, their health back, and they can live their life with like vitality and energy. So today we're going to talk about nothing. So the first thing we want to know is, what are hormones? So it seems like a simple question, right? But when you really think about what a hormone is, what is it? So I think about a messenger on a bike. You're carrying some sort of important information from one place to another. That's really all hormones are, messengers on a bike. So there's lots of different hormones in the body. There's sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. There's stress hormones like cortisol. There's hormones that regulate our blood sugar like insulin. There's hormones, there's just lots of different hormones in the body. And so today we're really gonna focus on some of those sex hormones and how the toxins that we come into contact with really affect those sex hormones. So what does estrogen do? Estrogen, I can't say the word. Estrogen is super stimulating. It gives you energy, it helps make tissues grow, it helps the development of breast and reproductive organs, it helps with brain function, it helps you sleep, it helps with libido, it helps with good cognition. Often in the industrialized world today, we find that we have too much estrogen and not enough progesterone. And in females, that gives us things like headaches and PMS and irritability and weight gain. In males, it gives us things like gynecomastia, so you get breasts in males, you get irritability, you get fatigue, you get tiredness. What is progesterone? Progesterone is made from the ovaries and the adrenal glands, and it is really the calming hormone. So estrogen is stimulating, as progesterone is very calming. It can be helpful for seizures, it can help with sleep, it helps when people worry all that time. So when you have too much estrogen and not enough progesterone, you wake up around 1 to 3 and your brain's going blah, 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 blah. And you maybe have never worried before in your life, but you find yourself worrying all the time. What about testosterone? Testosterone is made from ovaries and adrenal glands and testes, and it's our vitality hormone. It gives us big muscles, it helps with our confidence, it keeps our bones strong, helps with assertive behavior. Now what happens when these hormones, my thing's not moving very well. What happens when these hormones, go out of balance? We just started to talk about that predominantly estrogen in the first half of the woman's menstrual cycle and then progesterone in the second half. And if those estrogen and progesterone hormones start going out of balance, you get estrogen dominance. And when you get estrogen dominance, you start feeling irritable and you start having headaches. And you may notice breast tenderness and you have more PMS. And you might have that difficulty waking up. And so when you have a lot of hormone imbalances, life just doesn't go as well as it should. This is Hope, and I'm going to tell you Hope's hormone story so that I can kind of explain to you what happens when you go to a functional medicine clinic. Hope is a 52-year-old patient of mine. She is super busy with a job, a wife, kids, and now aging parents. I remember the first time I saw her in my exam room, she sat down, she was dressed perfectly and working on her laptop because she never wastes a minute, right? And so she looked up at me when I walked in and said, "Hey, how you doing?" and burst into tears. So Hope was sure that something was really, really wrong with her. She said that she had gone through menopause and that seemed fine, but then all of a sudden she started having more than just hot flashes. She couldn't remember anything and she couldn't sleep anything, and she was so anxious and she hurt all over and she was having palpitations and chest pains. And she thought that there was probably something much more wrong than her hormones. And so what we do when I see patients in my clinic who have a hormone imbalance or suspected hormone imbalance is the first thing we do is we really listen to them. We listen to their story and we try to figure out exactly what the triggers are. And you know, sometimes the triggers are just aging, but rarely. Like there's always this, you know, I think the natural process for a woman who's going through menopause should be, you just go through menopause and quit having your periods, right? It should not be this huge problem for us because we have so many imbalances and toxicities and stress in our lives today, we get a lot more problems than we used to. So in functional medicine, after we listen to the story and we really try to figure out where those imbalances might lie, we try to order the right tests. And as a family medicine doctor, before I did functional medicine, I can't tell you how many women came in to see me and men came in to see me and said, I don't feel good. I feel depressed, tired, anxious. Can you try to help me? And I would do my little workup and I'd say, well, everything looks fine. And maybe some of you have heard that too. One of the things that functional medicine gave me was a whole new understanding of ways we can look at the human body through biochemistry. And so nowadays, I do things like a Nutra-Eval diagnostics that looks at every single vitamin and mineral and your proteins and your fats. It looks at how your mitochondria are working. It looks at a little bit of how your toxins are working, or how many toxins you have, and if you have a liver problem, are you keeping up with those toxins? I might look at your hormones at a certain time of day. I also look at your cortisol. So cortisol is your sex hormone, or your stress hormone, right? So many people have too much cortisol or too little. And we think that, you come in saying you're tired, but really it's a stress problem. And we can tell that. We can see that through tests and through talking to people. And then we also always look at the gut. So the gut is, I've heard over and over today through this last 2 days, the gut microbiome is everything, right? So we look for infections, we look for the right kind of bacteria, we look to see if you have yeast overgrowth or parasites or worms. And then we fix that, and magically, many hormones get better. So with Hope, she was able to go through this extensive workup. We were able to identify that it really was her hormones, but her gut wasn't working as well as she should, and she had some nutrient problems, and she had some stress problems. And so we were able to help her with that. We changed her diet, we fixed her gut, we fixed her hormones. And within just a short 4 to 6 months, she came back in and she was feeling so great. I remember she's like, I not only have energy to take care of my family, but I'm now taking a half day off and doing yoga. So what are the causes of these hormone imbalances? I started to talk about some of the tests we do. The 3 main causes of hormone imbalances are stress, inflammation. Inflammation is often caused by food sensitivities or stealthy infections, is what I call them, and toxins, right? So it's pretty simple. Stress, inflammation, and toxins. So let's move to toxins. And I think this crowd knows about toxins, right? So I think about toxins as a soup bowl. Like, we have tons of toxins that we are completely immersed in every single day. And it's not one little toxin that's a problem, it's having tons and tons of them that's a problem, right? And so what we want to assess is what's your toxic burden. How well is your body keeping up with getting rid of those toxins? Because if you can't keep up with it, then your body starts storing it in places like your bones and your fat, and you start feeling worse and worse. And so when I'm thinking about this, I think about Lucy and Ethel. So let's see if I can get this to work. It may not work. Okay, so I'll tell you about it. Lucy and Ethel. You have guys ever seen this one? Yeah, raise your hand if you've seen this one. So this is what I think of the liver. The liver's job is to tag things to leave the body. And your liver can only tag so many things. So we live in this soup bowl, and your liver's job is to tag. And what happens is, just like what happened with Lucy and Ethel, is that the liver gets completely overburdened because there's too many toxins coming in. And this was just a great way to show you that. So what is in our soup bowl? Well, here's the dirty dozen endocrine disruptors. So again, endocrine disruptors are just the ones that have the most effect on our hormones. And we're going to go through each of these. So any ideas what this one might be? What are you getting exposed from this? Aluminum. I hear aluminum. So what I was hoping the right answer would be is perchlorates. Right? It was right on tip of your tongue again. So this is really interesting when we do our NutriBell test, and I do this on, you know.
The tip of your tongue.
I do this test on a lot of people. I find that we actually test for this, and almost everybody is high in perchlorates. And it's a component of rocket fuel. So how in the world should we be getting rocket fuel? Well, if you think about that picture you just saw, every time there's a rocket that's going up, it releases a lot of stuff into the air. And then that stuff gets into our soil and into our water supply eventually. So it's ubiquitous in our water. It affects the brain development, organ development in infants and children. It causes thyroid problems. And it actually competes with iodine. So if you have perchlorates and you don't have enough iodine, which many of us do sea salt, so we don't get enough iodine anymore, then you start to have problems. Okay, I'm not going to guess this one, but this is dioxins, or POP, persistent organophosphates. So dioxins are formed in industrial processes that use chlorine or bromine. And what happens during that is they basically are incinerated in the waste, and then they're released into the air again. Also, paper mills use this in bleaching. So like when you use toilet paper that's been bleached, or paper towels that have been bleached, there might be dioxins in them. And it's fat soluble, so it accumulates, it doesn't go through your body. And 93% of Americans on a standard American diet are exposed. Unfortunately, organic farming doesn't necessarily get rid of these because you're getting them from the air, right? So when you eat more meat and dairy, you'll get exposed to more dioxins.
Right.
What do fragrances and plastic wrap have in common? Ah, very good. You guys know that? Phthalates, right. So phthalates trigger cell death. So there's basically little molecules in the body that say, hey, cells, you need to die. And when you get exposed to phthalates, which are in flexible plastic, they're in like pacifiers, they're in lots of our toys, they're in personal care products, so like lotions, things like that. And a lot of times, every time you see fragrance, it's got a phthalate in it. And so you want to avoid these because it decreases your ability to have babies, it decreases sperm, it causes birth defects, it can cause obesity and diabetes and thyroid problems. Everyone should know this one, right? Go Royals. That's absolutely right, BPA. So it's plastics. So what do plastics do to the body? They look just like estrogens. And what's really interesting about this is that when you measure hormones in the body, we measure very tiny amounts of hormones. There's very little amounts of hormones that have big effect. And so you don't need a lot of plastics to have a big effect on your hormones. It just needs to be a tiny little bit. And so we're getting tiny little bits all the time, right? And so that's why this is such a huge thing. And I think it's been really interesting to see the plastic industry. So now everything says, no, this is still plastic, but it's not BPA, so it must be safe, right? No, it just means that they haven't done the studies yet to tell us that it's bad. So you really need to be staying away from plastics. Do glass, do stainless steel. BPA decreases fertility. Again, I feel like a broken record here because they all do the same stuff. They cause male impotence, obesity, cardiovascular disease, asthma, diabetes, thyroid problems, and I think, I see people all the time in my clinic with all of these issues. We look around today in our population and almost everybody has some of this stuff, right? So we really need to work at getting this stuff out. And then I think of all the places, you think about water bottles, but they're also in sports equipment, they're in receipts, so every time you touch a receipt, it's got BPA in it. Food containers, medical devices. So I work in a hospital, there's tons of plastic everywhere I look. Baby bottles, we give it to our littlest kids. Dental fillings, DVDs and CDs, although those are, whoever has those anymore.
Wax dental floss.
Wax dental floss.
DVDs and CDs,
Mm-hmm.
play them or touch them up.
Yeah, they're often made of plastics.
And that will hurt me. Like,
It can rub off.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm just looking, you won't necessarily get this one or because you all know this one, organophosphates. So these are the pesticides that we put on our food. Again, an estrogen mimic. So you can begin to see, I mean, all these different hormones or all these different chemicals that we use start to mimic these hormones. And again, decreases fertility, impotence, obesity, cardiovascular disease, it just is all the same. And we get organophosphates from our food, our water, our breathing, and certainly just it coming into contact with our skin. What do we put on corn? Does anybody know what the most common herbicide is that we put on corn?
Roundup.
There's actually another one besides
BT?
besides Roundup. Atrazine, yeah. So atrazine is actually put on 80% of our corn. It's found in much of the water supply. And atrazine is really interesting. I had a video on this that you won't get to see, but atrazine can turn male frogs into female frogs, like very readily. And it doesn't take a lot to do it. So once again, delays puberty, obesity, prostate problems, cancers.
Can they do that to people?
Yeah, I wonder,
Huh.
right? It is.
Isn't that a great question, right? Can it do it to people?
One wonder.
So of course, I think this crowd knows what GMOs are, genetically modified organisms that have been engineered to be able to accept more pesticides and herbicides, especially Roundup, right? And the GMOs are 94% of the soy crops, 94% of cotton crops, 92% of corn and beets. And then we also see it in papayas, zucchinis, summer squash, tomatoes, beef, vegetable oil, flax, potatoes, apples, artificial sweeteners, other processed foods, and now we're seeing it in meats. So GMOs cause lots of health problems. Whether they're admitted to or not, they cause food allergies, liver problems, infertility, hormone imbalances, mortality, antibiotic resistance, weight gain, inability to lose weight, chronic inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, fatigue, seasonal allergies, brain fog, anxiety, depression, eczema, high blood pressure, asthma, insomnia, joint pain, accelerated aging, and many, many, many more complications, like cancer, right? I read a really interesting statistic the other day about babies and kids in America, and we are 70% more likely to die. Our children are 70% more likely to die than other developed countries. And when I start talking about all of these chemicals, it just makes me, it just starts to make you a little sick. I live in a small town in Kansas, or I used to live in a small town in Kansas, and so it's a farming town. And it's amazing to me how many people still don't have any idea. My brother works for a company, a little company called Monsanto. Used to work for a little company called Monsanto. And so we couldn't even talk about it in our house, right? Because they were like, well, what are you talking about? It's fine. It's not fine. And it's amazing to me, in my little small town of 2,000, there's like 20 people who have brain cancer. Like, that shouldn't happen. I mean, it should not happen to people. And yet, here we are spraying our fields with what? Roundup, which has now been associated with lymphoma. I had a patient recently, she's actually a long-time patient, but her son died of lymphoma, and they lived right next to a field where they sprayed their whole life, and that spray just kept hitting him. And then he actually got a job with a pesticide company, like a teenage job with a pesticide company, and so then he was spraying stuff. And then when he was in his early 20s, he got lymphoma and died. So, lest you think it happens to somebody else, it can happen to you or your child, and it is very serious. Glyphosates can cause liver, kidney problems, kills good bacteria in the gut, higher rates of miscarriage, preterm labor. 85% of more than 10,000 foods tested have some pesticides in it. So it's really everywhere. Honey, oatmeal box cereals. This is one of my patients named Nancy. who agreed to let me put her picture up here. She actually came with her mom when she was about 6 years old to see me, and she had precocious puberty, so she was developing breast buds and pubic hair when she was she came to town when she was 7, so 6 to 7. And it turns out that they ate a standard American diet, and their parents were dairy farmers, I believe, and so they got cows from their parents. And she had some trouble with dairy for a while, so they gave her soy. And what's amazing about this is that just with a little bit of intervention, and this is what I really want to say, just with a little bit of intervention, we were able to completely reverse that. So in 6 months, we took out all of the standard foods, basically, and we started having her eat organic, and we gave her some things to help heal her gut. And within 6 months, actually, she was no longer in precocious puberty, and now she's 9. So what about our babies? You won't guess this one, so I'm not going to make you. This was a study in 2012, 2013 that looked at baby food juice, and it found that 89% of grape juice for babies and 55% of apple juice for babies had lead in it. So what's the safe amount of lead? Right, no acceptable level. So we know lead lowers the IQ, it causes hearing loss, it causes miscarriage, lowered sex hormones, cortisol, dysregulation, high blood pressure, diabetes, anxiety, and osteoporosis. What I didn't know was it was found in our baby foods. We most of the time think about paint, old houses, right? So chipping paint often can expose our kids to lead. I've heard that sometimes some toys that are shipped to us still have lead on them. And it can be found in our water supply from old pipes. And I usually recommend going to environmentalworkinggroup.org to look at water filters. My family uses a big Berkey, and I feel like that works really well. Okay, what does rice have in it? Arsenic, yes. So what does arsenic do? It affects insulin, it causes diabetes and obesity, osteoporosis, failure to thrive, and it's found in our rice and our water supply. What about tuna? Yes. You know, mercury's a big one. I find people have lots of trouble when they get exposed to mercury. You can get it from basically what happens is we have carbon that we're burning, and then that gets into the air, and then it gets into the ocean, and then our fish feed on it. So it's the really big fish that have the most mercury. So like things like swordfish, tuna, mackerel are the highest amount of mercury. And mercury binds, so it looks just like a hormone, and it sort of like binds in the receptors of the hormones. And so it can cause tons of problems for people. It causes immune suppression, fatigue, headaches. I've seen lots of skin problems. And so this is definitely something that we take a big interest in and look for and help people remove it. Teflon. So I have an interesting story about Teflon. I had this patient who lived in Alaska, actually, and she owned an organic farm and had an organic restaurant, and it was award-winning and amazing farm and restaurant. And she actually lived just downstream of a nonstick factory who was basically, puffing all of their exhaust, and it came into her entire small town, and the entire town was contaminated. And guess what? You can't remove these. Like, these are so persistent, there's really nothing I can do to help people get these out almost. Highly resistant to degradation. And it reduces fertility. My patient who had it has lots of insulin resistant issues. She has some kidney problems. And then, even though this isn't found in our food supply, it kind of is because it gets into dust, and then that dust gets into our food.
One slide,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned where it's found.
Yeah, you bet. So you can find it in the nonstick pans, but you can also find it like in carpet that has been stain treated. You can find it in fluoro or perfluoro personal care products. So you want to look for those on the back of your cosmetics, and then you should use a HIPAA filter to help with that. Okay, what's this one? You bet. And here's why I talk about flame retardant. So since 1972, in breast milk, it has doubled every 5 years. Since we feed our babies breast milk, I thought it was worthy of mention. Hopefully we feed our babies breast milk. So what's the best way you can reduce flame retardant? Well, maybe stop breastfeeding? No, but honestly, that's a huge deal. And we really need to think about, this has been banned in a lot of places, but it's still found in a lot of places, and it's on the dust. And so really avoid that. It causes thyroid problems, memory, learning problems, reduced fertility, early puberty.
Do they still put that on baby clothes?
No, most places have banned it now. But I think it's still in furniture.
In California, but now, only in California because of all the work that community members did 3 years ago or so. Now you could look on any upholstered furniture like this, and by law, it has to say whether or not it's treated with flame retardant chemicals.
But only in California.
Only in California.
Yeah.
Like the rest of some of the countries, some of the other states are getting non-treated furniture because of California's legislation. Because it makes it easier, so you thank goodness.
So then after we cook, we clean. And what do we get when we clean? So what I was talking about is medical ethers. This is often found in cleaning products. It's again an endocrine disruptor. It causes thyroid problems, reduced fertility, asthma, and allergy. And you want to avoid the products with 2-butoxyethanol and methoxydiglycol. Of course, the hard part with cleaning products, if you had noticed, they don't ever write what the products are in it. So just stay away from them and make your own, right? Do you feel like you want to just get in a bubble now? So, when I was, my dad is actually a pastor, and so when I was in youth group about 1,000 times, we'd be sitting there and they'd be like, it's all about kiddo. You need to keep the garbage, or take the garbage out and don't let the garbage in. I think he was talking about my purity, but today we're going to talk about something else about this. So we really want to decrease the garbage coming in, right? In the most simplest terms. And so I really want to spend some time today talking with you is what do we do about all these toxins? I mean, we know that we're getting exposed to them. What can we do to make a difference? The first thing we do in our clinic is we change people's eating habits, right? So we go from a sad American diet to a diet that is one that has low sugar, low fat. No, not low fat. Just kidding. Low sugar. We only know a few things about diet, right? That I can say universally. We eat too much sugar, and we shouldn't have trans fats. And we need to get all of these chemicals out of our food, right? So what we need to eat is whole foods with low sugar and avoiding all the chemicals. And in other words, you can just say, get out the crap. So get rid of carbonated drinks, get rid of refined sugars, artificial foods, dyes, additives, and processed foods. That's easy. I mean, that's not easy, but I think most people understand that. Eat organic and GMO-free. And then in our clinic, often when people have developed chronic disease, we start them on an elimination diet as well. An elimination diet is when you take out the foods that people get sensitive to. So once we're exposed to a lot of these chemicals, it disrupts our gut biome. It disrupts the integrity of our gut lining. And so once we've done that, then we start making immune reactions to foods. And then those immune system reactions to those foods often are sort of almost a trigger for autoimmunity in our body. So one of the things that we do to start with people is we put them on an elimination diet. So the foods that you want to eliminate on an elimination diet are gluten, corn, soy, peanuts, shellfish, eggs, and everybody has to stay away from sugar. And of course, we want you to eat whole foods while you're on it. And when we do an elimination diet, we usually ask people to stay on an elimination diet for at least 3 weeks because that's the amount of time it takes for the antibodies in your body to reduce by 50%. And then we start adding these foods back in one by one so that you can see what foods are particularly bothering you. Now, you might say, it's so much easier for me just to go get an allergy test. And I don't recommend that because if you have a leaky gut, your test will just blow up positive. So it's much, much better to not put as much garbage in, right? So really go on a restricted diet to start with and then add each food back in so that you can develop your perfect diet. When you're adding foods back in, what we usually have people do is add one food at a time. So say, you're really missing your raw dairy. I just saw an awesome talk about raw dairy a few minutes ago. So what you'll do is you add your raw dairy back in, and you see if you have an immediate reaction. Those are easy. Like we know those reactions. I get a stomach ache, I don't feel good. But you need to wait at least 72 hours to see if you get a delayed reaction. Now I have people that come back all the time and say, Doc, I felt really kind of crappy on day 3, but I don't think it was that dairy, I just added back in. So what I always tell people is when that happens, write it down on a list and retry it. You have to convince yourself sometimes that it really is this food that's bothering me. And then once we take these foods out and figure out what diet you need to eat right now, we go about the work of healing your gut. And so often I find that people are able to add foods back in once we've healed their gut. Water. So how much water should you drink in a day? Half your body weight. So I've got 2 teenage boys, so I always say you have to pee until it's clear. And that's what I'm always asking. Is it clear? Is it clear? Of course, they should be taking their vitamins too, so it's usually bright yellow, but it is...
That means your vitamins don't work.
Not necessarily.
You don't get what
We've supersaturated. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water. When I think about taking things out, right now I'm talking about, we just want to make sure that the water's pure. And when I talk about garbage out, I'm going to talk about the 4 ways we can get toxins out of our body, and one of those ways is through pee, right? So we not only need to drink lots of water, pure water, to just make all the processes work right, we also need to drink it so that we can help detox better. Healthy Living app, I think this is a wonderful app. It's free and it can help you. And when we have people in our clinic, what we do is we make a big long list of the things that we need them to change. And that can be kind of overwhelming, so then we just start, we say, as you run out of this, then I want you to replace it with something different. And so that's really what you need to be thinking about is, one by one, what are the things that I can do to change in my home environment, on my skin, and the foods that I'm eating. And they do add up over time. This is Joy, another patient that had endometriosis actually. And she was super sick when she came to see me. She had tons of abdominal pain. She was in her 30s and she was thinking about getting a hysterectomy. Had tried every traditional medical treatment. And it was really interesting because I had just started functional medicine at this time, and literally I was working in a busy family medicine practice and I made these little elimination diet packets. And that was the only thing I did, so I don't even know. And so she came in and she's like, hey doc, I feel really bad, I've got this pain. And I said, well, I don't really know if this will help that much or not, but I've got this diet you could try. This elimination diet, why don't you try it? I handed her the packet. And I actually never saw her again, which is an interesting thing. 2 years later, she came and wrote me a letter, and she said, I just want you to know your elimination diet changed my life. Wow, right? Food is medicine. And that was one of the things that made me realize, there is so much power in the food that we eat. If we can change somebody's entire trajectory just by changing their food, we need to be talking about that food an awful lot more than we really do. Turns out, she was sensitive to carrots. That's not even on my elimination diet. Okay. So, we're decreasing the amount of toxins coming into our body. Now we're going to decrease the amount of toxins coming out. How do we do that? There's 4 ways, basically, to get toxins out of your body. So you poop it out, you pee it out, you sweat it out, or you breathe it out. Got it? So it's easy. So, I know, right? How many times do you go to the bathroom every day? It is amazing to me when I have people come in and we talk and I say, so, do you have any problems with constipation? And they say, no, I'm fine. And I say, okay, great, so you go to the bathroom like 2 or 3 times every day? And I go, well, no, I would never do that. So it's not normal to go to the bathroom every other day or every second day, and it's really optimal to go to the bathroom every 2 to 3 times a day. And I'm not talking about peeing, I'm talking about pooping. So we really want to maximize our body's ability to get rid of the toxins that we're getting exposed to. Remember, we're living in a soup, and so it doesn't go away. We just got to keep getting it out. Some of the things, the tricks of the trade, I guess, you need to eat lots of fiber. So 25 to 35 grams is what's recommended. Many people don't eat that much fiber. So you might just sort of start counting and see. Now, what I don't recommend that you do is go from eating 5 or 10 grams of fiber a day and say, oh, I'm going to start eating 35. You won't like me very much because that will cause tons of bloating and gas. Your body really needs to get used to fiber. So you really shouldn't increase fiber by more than 5 grams each week or 2. Wait till the gas sort of dies down and then increase it a little more. Drink plenty of water. Magnesium, so often our bodies, when we test, we don't even need to test for magnesium because everybody's short of magnesium. And magnesium is really important for bowels. So take a little extra magnesium, your body will thank you for it. Don't do it if you've got kidney problems. Yes, ma'am?
But don't do milk of magnesia because it's loaded with aluminum.
Not milk of magnesia, thank you.
So we're all magnesium depleted, our soil is depleted.
That's right, everybody's doesn't have enough magnesium, but magnesium's a great way to help your body have bowel movement, and you will have loose stools before you get toxic in magnesium, I promise. Yes?
What about the other forms of magnesium, taurate?
So those are more, so they're great, but for having a bowel movement, it's better to do citrate or oxide because they're not as absorbed. I like citrate because it's absorbed somewhat, whereas oxide is really not absorbed at all. But glycinate, threonate, those, they're absorbed so well. They still will make you have diarrhea if you get a whole lot of them, but I usually go for the citrate because it'll just give me both. It'll help absorption and bowels.
The other great thing about magnesium is that if you take it at night, it'll help you sleep.
Well, and absolutely, and that's coming next. Good segue. Yeah.
And also, an herbal magnesium is cascara. We want to start off with just one capsule. Cascara has adequate source of magnesium.
Great. Cascara.
Cascara. It's an herb.
So vitamin C, increase your vitamin C. Again, vitamin C is a great antioxidant, but it also, if you get enough of it, will make you have a bowel movement. And then I like trifala a lot. I don't know if the rest of you have ever used that, but that's an herb, and it's really good for increasing bowel movements.
Which one?
Trifala.
Oh, triphala. Triphala?
You say trifala, I say trifala. Okay, so again, I'm reminding you to pee. So this time, it's not the amount, you're working at, you've already got clean food, clean water, now you're just working at flushing. Flush, flush, flush. Saunas. So there's an amazing study really about the 9/11 firefighters. I don't know if you guys have heard of this study, but basically after 9/11, a lot of the firefighters were so toxic, they had so many chemicals in their body, and I'm sure they were traumatized too, but they weren't able to go to work. And so what they did is that they actually put them in saunas for, I think it was a 2-week period for quite a lot of hours. They were infrared saunas, and they were able to measure before and after their chemicals in their body, and they found that they got rid of most of their chemicals. And they were able to go back to work and work without problem. So infrared saunas, any sauna is good because it's really sweating. You're sweating out the toxins, right? But infrared saunas are what they used for the firefighters. Again, sweating is good, so we want to exercise. High intensity exercise tends to be better for hormone balance. Weights are good as well. And then we want to upregulate the body's ability, the liver's ability to tag things that need to go away. So the liver tags, right? So how do we do that? We eat a clean diet, we decrease the toxins coming in. Here's just a few things that sometimes we will recommend. This is not medical advice, but just education. I like milk thistle, I like turmeric, it helps the phase 2 portion of the liver, which is what you want to do. There's 2 phases in your liver. The first phase, basically, to get your body ready, I would say it sort of says, hey, I need to take this out to the trash. And then the next phase actually takes it out to the trash. So there's 2 phases. If you upregulate phase 1, but don't upregulate phase 2 in your liver, you'll be in trouble. So you want to do things that really upregulate phase 2. And these I'll do, I like, yep.
I'm sorry, I'm not at all familiar with the third and fourth.
Oh, let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
So TEDCA is actually really cool. It produces basically like ox bile in your body. It's a bile acid salt. And so it helps digestion through giving you bile acid salts.
You ingest it by.
It's a capsule. And so you can get a capsule called TEDCA that helps with bile acid salts. It's really great for people who've had their gallbladder out, but it also really helps start that whole that liver's ability to get rid of things. And then NAC is N-acetylcysteine. And that is a precursor to glutathione, and glutathione is one of the best ways to, best antioxidants, but it also really helps with that phase 2 portion in the liver, getting things out.
May I just say that Push Catch Liver Detox from Chris Shade has all of those things in it, the push part of it.
Yep.
So it makes sure you won't get rid of that. And formulation matters on supplements, so taking things that were developed for synergies. And again, I make no money off anything. I just know the good products, and that one has all of those in it.
Yep.
One-stop shopping. What's the name of it? Push Catch Detox,
Yes, ma'am.
quicksilverscientific.com.
Currently, has been tested by these people that are third-party testers, and they found lead in
In some turmeric, so I think you have to be very careful how you source it, for sure. I mean, I don't recommend doing lots of stuff. 2 minutes, huh? Okay, we're going forward. Okay, sleep. So you need to sleep to detox. You need to get tested for sleep apnea if you think you might have it, because if you don't sleep, your body is in stress, right? So you need to sleep. Keep your bedroom cool, turn off electronics, use blue blocker glasses. These are just a few supplements that I like for sleep. I'll let you take a picture if you want, but I'm flying over it. Okay, the stress response. So I tell people this all the time in my clinic. Like, it does not matter what you do unless you can get your body out of stress, right? You have to get your body out of stress to heal. When you get your body out of stress, miracles happen. So if you leave here with nothing more than you need to figure out ways to get your body out of stress, please, please, please leave with that message in your head. Because stress is really the elephant in the room for most people. We live in America, so we're stressed. So we've got two nervous systems. We've got our sympathetic nervous system, which helps us get rid of the lion, run away from the lion. And then we've got the rest and digest. And if you've never heard of vagal nerve exercises, have you guys heard of those? So vagal nerve exercises are these really great things that you can sort of hack. So it's things like gargling. Take a glass of water and gargle it every morning when you're brushing your teeth. Put your legs up against a wall and just sit there and breathe. Do the 4-7-8 breath. You can do that for 2 to 3 minutes each time before you breathe. Be mindful about what you eat and how you eat. Take adaptogens, so sometimes things like rhodiola and holy basil and ashwagandha can be really helpful at giving your body some calm. Learn yoga, learn meditation, learn mindfulness. And don't just sit here and think, I want to do that, because if you don't do it, you will not get well. Like, that is so important. And I think it's really easy for us to sometimes sit and be so stressed out with everything we do, right? This conference is sort of stressful when I think about it. I mean, all of the stuff, right? Like, the first half of my talk is stress.
under a great deal of stress, but a lot of it too, I mean, when you have issues, you need to talk about it, just get it out.
I agree. I don't think that it's reasonable for us to think that we will not have stressful situations, or we might not have stressful work, or we might not be stressed out by the toxins that we're coming into contact with. What we have to do, this is what I think about, it's just like exercising your muscles. You have to learn how to relax your brain. And the only way you can do that is by practicing, right? So practice the ability to learn to relax, because then it'll help your body snap back out when you're suffering, when you're going through something so stressful as your husband dying. So I don't think there's a way to, that's always stressful, and it should be. But what we need to learn is figuring out how we can help our brains come out of it. Okay, I was going to teach you the breath of fire, so I'm going to tell you about it really, really quickly because I only have like a minute left or 2 minutes. This is a great way to detox. So the final thing I said was breathing, and so I'm going to just have you guys all stand up with me real quick. Have you heard of the breath of fire? Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to put your hands up like this, and you don't have to do it quite yet because I'm going to explain how you do this first, sorry. You're going to breathe in through your nose, and you're going to make your belly go out. So, and then you're going to breathe out through your nose. Your mouth stays shut, in, out. Real fast, okay? This is not a slow meditation. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, push your belly out, and breathe out through your nose. And while you're doing that, you're going to put your hands up at 60-degree angle, and you're going to close your fingers in, and you're going to put your thumbs up. And we're going to do this for 2 minutes. Now, if you get dizzy or lightheaded while you're doing this, just start taking some deep breaths, okay? So let's start by just taking a couple deep breaths. And I'm going to... somebody put a timer? Can you tell us when 2-minute timer? Okay. Okay. So take a big deep breath in through your nose and make your belly go out. And then release. And then do that one more time. Okay, now we're going to start rapid fire. So now what you're going to do is you're going to start breathing in through your nose and out really quickly. And just keep doing that. You're going to do it for 2 minutes. Really quickly. Deep, forceful. You might start noticing a little bit of tingling. Your arms might start to ache a little bit. Hold them high. You can do this. Keep going if you don't. You've got this. It is supposed to be a little painful. Almost there. 2 minutes seems like a long time, doesn't it? Okay, now take a big deep breath. In through your nose and out through your hands, and release your hands to the ceiling. And one more deep breath. How does that make you feel? It's amazing how that can kind of be very invigorating. That's a really great way to start your day, to release toxins. hopefully that's a new one for you guys to learn. Okay, I was going to show you this cool video and it doesn't work anyways, so this is just about the last 10 years of your life. So I just think the decisions you make today will change the rest of your life. And hopefully what we've done today is figure out where the toxins are, figure out how to get rid of them. And I want to leave you with one final thing. I would be happy to share with you a comprehensive elimination diet. If you want to text the word HOPE to that phone number and your email address. When I get back home, I'll send you the elimination diet. It's like a 30-page guide to the elimination diet. It gives you 1 week of recipes, gives you an at-a-glance elimination diet, and then how to add the foods back in. So if you guys want to text me with your email address, I'm happy to get that back to you later. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
I had to have a number of implants removed because there were.
Can you have the mic, please?
The microphone.
Because there's bone loss and infection, so the good news is the infection is gone, but the bad news is that I will need to wear a partial denture, which is plastic, and I'm really concerned about it. Do you know what material dentures or partial dentures are made out of, and if they have any of the toxins that you were talking about?
I think some of them do. And so I think, again, what you have to look at is how can I make my body the best it can be, even if I'm going to be exposing myself to some toxins, right? It's always a balance, and we always live in this soup. So if you know you're going to get some toxins there, then I think you have to try to maximize not getting toxins in other places, if that makes sense. Because I think that, there's some times where it's just unavoidable.
I'm just curious, how much what people think are allergies are actually from the chemicals that are put on the food?
I think a lot. So I see tons of people, when I do the elimination diet, almost everybody comes back with a gluten sensitivity. And for many reasons, I often take gluten out of their diet. But I often wonder about gluten. Is it a gluten sensitivity or is it a Roundup sensitivity, right? I think that once you start getting toxins out and reintroduce things to people, you find that they can often tolerate it. So that would go to getting the chemicals out. Yes, ma'am?
Hi. I wanted to ask a question about water. Filter water versus distilled water. Now, I'm hearing that with distilled water, they said that don't take it very often because it will leach out your minerals. Right. But in order to drink enough minerals to get your body's work, you'd have to drink gallons and gallons of it. Can you comment on that?
So I think, as with everything, there's so many conflicting information. So what we do, I use a big Berkey, which basically takes out all the minerals, it takes out everything, and then I just put a scoop of minerals back in, and we drink it like that. So we put a scoop of minerals in our drinking water.
Could you put your last slide up, please, with your information?
Sure. Any more questions? It did?
I just tried to text home.
Tell me no.
Check again, is it more time?
Is it case sensitive?
What?
Is it case sensitive?
It shouldn't be. So, it's not working? Is it coming back still?
Did you put one in it?
Hey.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. That's great. You covered so much material. I have a question about the big burpee one that you use. Is that a reverse osmosis? It takes out everything?
It's a carbon filter, but then they also have fluoride filter on it.
Okay, so it's like a carbon filter. And the other question I had was, do you have any literature that you could send me? Because I get that question a lot about GMOs. Like, what's the supportable evidence that GMO is actually hurting our bodies? Because I realized that means, usually if you're gonna eat GMO foods, for one, most of them are resistant to certain herbicides or insecticides, so that's why it's often GMO.
Right.
So it's going to be contaminated with those. But besides that fact, let's say it's not, because let's say that particular pesticide breaks down, has a short half-life on the crop. Do you have you seen any literature that genetically modified
Yes.
otherwise?
Serolini and Puskai.
Yeah, is there any way?
I can send you the references I have.
And then the final question is, I have a hard time for myself, so I can't advise, other folks who, when I give talks, that it's hard for me to tell people to take so much water. How do we drink half of the body weight with water? Because for me, that means 60 pounds of water.
Oh, no, not 60 pounds of water.
Because I thought,
You're right,
it's half of the body weight.
in ounces, so that would be 60 ounces at a minimum. Very good point, thank you. That would be really hard to drink 60 pounds. Any other questions? Hopefully this was helpful.
It's another question, but I just want to let other people know about the Berkey filter thing, because I try to buy that, and they will not deliver it to California for some strange reason. However, if you can bypass that, you can get it on Amazon, and they'll deliver it to you in California.
Interesting.
It comes with some big plastic thing. I was gonna try to find you something big plastic.
Yeah, it says LiveAware was number.
Okay, let me just give you my cell phone number. It'll work. 816-805-6827. I can't believe that's not working. 816-805-6827. That's my cell phone number. If you text me, it won't be until Tuesday, but I'll send you the stuff.
Say it again, 815.
816-805-6827. And it's so weird, I don't know why that's not working. Maybe I put it on mute. All right, great.